All right. Well, hey, we're live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tripp Smokepit. Tonight we are talking to, and I'm going to jumble the words on this. Wow, I'm already screwing this one up. I'm sorry, man. Retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel and author of a book called Baghdadi, Bill Riley. How are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing outstanding, Tripp. Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, dude, no, absolutely. What are you drinking? You were holding something up earlier.
I am drinking Highland Single Malt Whiskey, Aberlow, Abuna, which is, I think, Scottish for firewater.
Oh, that's absolutely appropriately named.
This is the good stuff.
No, yeah. Oh, dude, and you even got the right glass for it.
A buddy of mine, he retired from the Air Force. He came out here and he decided to use his GI Bill, so he went to law school. And as far as I can tell, yes, he did get a law degree, but he pretty much traveled and did international studies in Scotland and a bunch of other places. So he brought me back not only some whiskey, but some the right glasses.
Nice. The whole package. That's a good friend right there. Yeah, no, like, what is it? I was talking to Michelle Packard a couple weeks on here, and she sent me a box. She said, "You're not allowed to open this till we do the show." And I opened it. It's just Fireball. She's like, "All right, so I have this crossword puzzle, and every time you do this, you have to take a shot." So at the end of it, I was like, "All right, we're having a good time. Good night." Click the thing, went upstairs, just hugged my wife. I was like, "I love you. I'm gonna go sleep outside." It's like I could never get into Fireball.
It's a dare, but
yeah. No, on the other hand, what is it? There's stuff called Cannon Blast, which is Captain Morgan's I guess answer to Fireball, and that stuff is it's not sippably good, but like if you mix it with, Coke or whatever, it's not bad. So nice Christmassy, tangy flavor.
You can mix anything with Coke or Sprite, and you're not going to go too far off.
I mean, I guess it depends on who you are and your cultural stuff. Like, somebody was telling me that in Germany they do this thing where they take like a Heffenweizen and mix it with Coke, and it's like, why would you mix beer with Coke? It makes no sense.
I was in Greece, and the first time I was over there, we flew into Hellinikon Air Base, which is at dawn. So we came in over the mountains, and the Acropolis was there, Greece was there. We landed, and God, they hated us. It was the middle of all sorts of protests. Red Brigade was out there. It was we had barely got to the base before they broke all the windows on the van while we were waiting to get through, and security watched. It was awesome. But we finally got to the beach, and we got some of this red Greek wine that we've been hearing all of this about, from the Odyssey and the Iliad, going over the wine dark seas. And it was awful. I mean, it was basically like vampire wine. It sucked all the moisture out of your mouth, and you felt like you were going to die. And we were trying to figure out what we were doing wrong. And one of the locals comes up, and we were able to piece together a conversation. And he goes, "This is what you need." And he took about half a glass of the wine, half a glass of Sprite or 7-Up, and all of a sudden it opened up all sorts of possibilities, and it became a beautiful thing.
Nice. Yeah, because I know, like, back in the day, way back in the day, like back, during Socrates type stuff, they would mix their wine with water, like we would with whiskey. It was more concentrated. But wine nowadays, I like a really bitter, sandy wine. Like, I want to have to drink a glass of water after every sip. Like, I want my mind to be brought back to the Mojave Desert, but all in my mouth.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, no. So where you're at up in Idaho, is that deserty up there, or is that more mountains?
It's technically called high desert. So we're the desert just at elevation. So we're a few thousand feet. So it's not too bad. But we have a lot of irrigation that the founding fathers of Idaho put in for farming right when Boise was founded, and it goes out for miles and miles and miles. And now that the city's grown around it, it keeps everything beautiful, everything green. So
nice.
We had beautiful. I was actually up in the mountains just a few days ago, and it was gorgeous. And I was actually going to do this cast from outside on the patio. There was a nice view even at night. Yeah. But then all of a sudden the wind turned, and it just got freezing. So here I am in my office, and
well, I mean, there's books, and that's aptly appropriate for the conversation. So
yeah, yours are back there. You've got, well, the first 3 books of yours are back there. So, which I enjoyed very much, and I like the ties that you had to classical literature with kind of a fresh take on it.
I'm glad you enjoyed them, but yeah, no, I don't know if I want to call that plagiarism, or I was like, it'd be a really cool idea. I mean, Hollywood rips these things off all the time. I can do it.
Hey, Shakespeare said, "Great writers steal."
Yeah,
and so did a bunch of other people after that. So, follow the leader.
Yeah, no. One of the things I think is interesting about that, though, is like I've taken a little bit of a deep dive into not all of Shakespeare, but a decent amount of Shakespeare stuff, and almost everything that I could find that he's written was somebody else's story, like way before him. Like something extremely similar to Macbeth happened in Scotland like 200 years before him, and it was still like within, I guess, the popular knowledge. So they're like, oh, hey, yeah, it's that guy, except for he named him something different, and there's ghosts now. Why are there witches? Got it.
Well, that he had to put his own spin on it. So.
Yeah. Well, no, because like the first one, or my first one anyway, I took a lot from the Epic of Gilgamesh, if you've ever read that. Which on that though, I don't know why I just noticed this, but like in your bio on Instagram, it also says explorer of ancient ruins. Can we talk about that for a little bit?
We can talk about it for a little. I had the opportunity to go to undergrounds or older cities that cities were built on at several points in my career. When I was in Iraq, I was in the ancient city of Ur, which is Samaria, and then it's a ziggurat. It's a step pyramid, and it was the one place where priests and the people could meet the gods. The gods would come down from heaven. They would climb the ziggurat, and where they met in the middle was where they would have their worship and ceremonies. I had the opportunity to go to. We were also protecting a lot of the culturally significant sites, and I had the opportunity to go with a couple of archaeologists to the underground through there, and it blew me away. I didn't get chased by a rock, but the rest of it was serious Indiana Jones kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's always stuck with me. So, that connection that we have to the past, seeing how other people did things, their interpretations, and the mysticism that comes with it is just spectacular. So, whether it's an abandoned building or an ancient ruin,
well, I mean, technically ruins are abandoned buildings, so I mean,
it's true.
No, but like with that kind of stuff too, you're there, and like more often than not, the architecture is just gorgeous because people gave a shit about what they were building back then, and they built it to last. And well, I mean, kind of did. And then the other thing is like, I don't know if this kind of ties into the mysticism thing, but like, if you're like more than like 10 feet away from anybody else, you're like, okay, all right. So am I taking anything home with me that I don't want to be taking home with me right now?
Yeah, everyone becomes religious in a dark place.
Yeah.
There are some places. I have a sister who really believes in mysticism and New Age stuff, and I'm the skeptic. So we have some great conversations, and she's passionate about saving everything. But I mean, a couple of years ago, she got to go to Machu Picchu and actually do the walk up into the mountains, and she had altitude sickness as a result of that because she wasn't used to that, and she gutted her way through it because she's like, well, I paid to be here, so I'm going to get in. And it was just moving. I mean, you see the pictures of the green vistas and the ruins crowning the mountain, but she said that everyone tells the stories about being able to feel some kind of energy or vibrations or the culture that was there because you're surrounded by it. And even she said, I was a little skeptical about it. I wanted to believe, but she said, I left feeling different. I left, feeling like I was a part of something that isn't around anymore. And I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, like with those like big monoliths, like you can have, or you could be like, complete stone cold atheist and still have a religious experience. That's the right term. Like maybe not, hey, God came down and talked to me, but something happened, and it's really hard to put into words a lot of time unless you want to like write a paragraph about something that happened for 3 seconds,
Right. But it's all. I mean, you said they built them to last. They built them to kind of justify where we fit in the universe and to prove that we were here or they were there at that time. And just to be around that stuff, I think, whether it's the passion that you put into a great story or, the architecture that comes from, really trying to make sense out of the universe, it's touching.
Yeah. Yeah. No, crazy stuff. Cause like, I went to Petra once.
I would have loved that. I never got to go there.
If you go there, plan to be in the actual old city for like 3 days. Because I was there for a day and I technically saw everything, but it was like, all right, cool, I saw that. All right, cool, I saw that. And then like I couldn't absorb anything because like there's a lot of stuff there. Because like, how you always see the picture of like the treasury up front that comes out of the cave. Okay, there's like 4 of those things, and they're nowhere near each other, and there's all kinds of other stuff in between them, and they're all carved into the mountains and into the cliff face. And then inside of it, there's a room the size of a small Walmart just carved out of stone in there. And then like that door you see up front, that's like 4 feet tall. It's humongous.
That's you never see people next to it. It's always just pure. So I have no sense of scale.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Turkey? Turkey's got a couple of underground cities that are, you go through the desert and you get to kind of a oasis surrounded by rocky areas, and underground there are complete cities that, people had built to flee conflict, and they live there. And, one of them in particular got found by a guy who was renovating his house, and there was a draft, and he tried to fix it, and it broke open the wall into this huge chamber. He said, I think I'm going to check this out. And then it became a national treasure.
Yeah, no, I've looked into those a little bit, and they're not like a small town. It's like a full-blown city. They just carved into the dirt. I never found out any articles or any videos or docs that were explaining, how they got food and water. But I mean, maybe if they were doomsday prepping and just kept grain down there forever.
They had stables. They had larders where they could take dried vegetables, dried fruits, dried meat, and supposedly they existed down there for a while. They have trouble dating it because it got used over and over and over again through different periods. And the last time they were able to date it was as an enclave to flee Roman occupation.
Okay. Yeah, no, it wasn't immediately Rome had Turkey or Ayatollah, right? Not Ayatollah.
Anatolia?
Yeah. But yeah, no, it makes sense that they were there because they were up in like where Romania is and like at the edges of Russia and the Caspian. So yeah. No, it's kind of neat, kind of like forgetting, not forgetting, but putting together where everybody was in history, like what is it, like Alexander the Great took over like what about somewhere between a quarter and a third of like the old world. And I was watching this video. It was just like him tracking where he was going, and he left Greece immediately over. Well, he went straight into southern Turkey, and then from there, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, neat. Before he hooked back down and went up the places that I didn't know he went. Like everyone says that he stopped at India, but it's not like he got to India and turned back. He got to India and then pushed north up into what's like not Uzbekistan, but like Kyrgyzstan, almost to China, and then looped back from that way. So
it's amazing. I named my son Alexander after that dude. Yeah.
Is his middle name of Macedonia?
His middle name is Ignazio, after the Italian saint, and after my grandfather. So we call him Xander. He can grow into the rest of it.
Yeah. Is that a case of not predestiny, but predetermination?
I hope names have power. I mean, whether it's a character or a story. I mean, I had an uncle named Marion, and that was the toughest motherfucker that I had never met in my entire life. He was that name prepared him to be able to bring some pain. He was a guy that you want to watch in your back. But people judge us. That's the first way we introduce ourselves.
Right.
And a lot of times I think people grow around their name. So there are good ones, there are bad ones.
Yeah. What was it? I was going somewhere with this. Sorry, I've had McDonald's for dinner against my better judgment, and I'm paying for it right now. So, but yeah, no. John Wayne's name was Marion.
Ah, cool. And another, at least in the graphically tough dude.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Um, Speaking of names, though, there was that reminds me. There was this dude. His name was John Smith. If you can imagine being named that. And this is over in Afghanistan, and he was one of those dudes that didn't wear a uniform, had a beard, worked for the North Pole or the post office or something, and he left, and his replacement came in, and his replacement's name was John Smith.
yeah.
And after that dude left, his replacement came in, also named John Smith. And it was like, I know that's a very popular name, but
And they were not relations.
no.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of intelligence communities. I mean, most of my experience was with surveillance and with later cyber operations, but mostly the communications that tied everything together.
Right.
And well, you read my book. There are a lot of people I was good friends with that I'm really not convinced I ever really knew their names.
Yeah.
And over time it changed, and you just rolled with it. But good people. They did a kind of job that is difficult to do now, and the federal government doesn't like hiring people that aren't nice people to do not nice things. So they accomplish a few objectives, and then they get shuffled out unless they have enough dirt on someone where they can start to pick their own missions. And that cycle goes on and on and on and on to this day.
Yeah. Speaking of your book, though, one of the things that I thought was, I mean, like, granted, there's you got the whole range of emotions in there, everything from despair to jubilance. But one of the things I thought was really funny in it, and I forget exactly what it was, or what the piece of gear was, but you had to leave either Kuwait or Iraq and go down to Saudi Arabia to get a.
Oh, it was a switch. It was like anything that you would plug in to play games now, but back then they were backpack size.
Yeah, no, I remember reading it. I'm like, that's like 45 cents right now, and I have one on me on my keychain, and there's like 5 of these on the planet when this was going on. Just interesting stuff you don't think about in the change of times,
Well, it was big. I mean, computers used to be as big as a room, and now you've got computers that are as small as a couple of atoms. We're almost there. Yeah, exactly. So, what we wear on our wrist, or what we carry in our pocket. I used to joke with my guys that the average smartphone, when they finally came out and were integrated, had more processing power than most of the spacecraft we used to put on other planets. And the computers we were dumping on people's desks and showing them actually how to use them to varying degrees of success were more powerful than all the computing power that was used to put a man on the moon, and we used them to do PowerPoint slides. So, yeah, you're right. There's some irony there.
Well, I mean, you've heard that other thing too, is like where I have this device in my hands that lets me access the wealth of human knowledge, and I use it to be a dickhead to strangers and look at pictures of cats.
Well, funny story. We used to have to do not only we would set up secure networks for our guys, but we would also set them up for our allies to the levels that they were allowed to do, because we had to share information. And this wasn't in, I don't think this was in the book, but the Ukrainians came in when I was in Iraq the first time, and they relieved, I think they relieved a group of Romanians that was there, but the Ukrainians came in and they were really stoic and silent. Their liaisons were supposed to speak English, but they kind of didn't. And we set up all of this network for them to be able to communicate with us, so we could share offensive information, defensive information, some intelligence that had been really well scrubbed, and they were supposed to share stuff with us. And then the little green dot on the network just disappeared. So I went out to where their site was, a couple of Apache rides later, and I finally found what they had done, and they had taken our secure servers and all the technology that went with it to plug into the network. They had moved it to the unclassified side after they scrubbed it, and they were running basically Pornhub.
Good for them.
They were morale was good, but we had to explain some things to them, and they said the right things, and we were able to avoid the situation that required political appointees to come in and do diplomatic stuff.
Right.
And some of the stuff, and they almost cried when we were zeroing out the servers. I mean,
let's not have an international relationship or international incident because of Jenna Jameson, please. Thank you. We're trying to fight a war.
We're trying to fight a war. And every international facility that I've ever installed communications equipment anywhere in the world, I come back a couple of weeks later, see how everyone was doing, then look through the history. Porn. Always porn. It connects us. It's universal.
Yeah, I mean that's like one of the few. Like everybody eats, fucks, and shits, but besides that, like there's not much everyone does in some manner together.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But speaking of communication, though, this is my first deployment. You know, I'm a Lance Corporal E3, and comm had been down on the on that side of base for like a week, and my first sergeant, he takes 2 Dixie cups and puts a bunch of twine together, and he goes, "Hey, I want you to take this through the S6 and find literally anybody that has more than 3 stripes. Yeah. Hand this to them, tell them to go fuck themselves, and then when they start yelling at you, just walk back here." So I went and found this master sergeant. I was like, "Hey, master sergeant, this is for you. Go fuck yourself." And he's like, "What the fuck?" So he starts like, I'm like, "Fuck it, I'm skittling out of here." So I like go back into like our tent, and he's like running after me, right? And little did I know that there was an ambush set up for him. So when he gets in there, there's like 2 majors, a lieutenant colonel, the sergeant major, and then like 4 first sergeants. And then they're like, "Ainsworth, get the fuck out." So I'm like, "All right, so this is gonna be bad." Also, these are tents, and I'm a Lance Corporal, so I'm gonna stand on the back of this tent, smoke a cigarette, and listen to this master get his ass chewed.
It's sometimes you got to find the wildlife that you need at the watering hole where they're drinking from, so you can shoot them and drag them back.
Yeah.
I liked being in intelligence, and I liked transitioning to communications because my background was more on the operational side. So I really was able to work with some of my peers to kind of teach them what we really do. It's not about getting an antenna up and pulling cable. It's about how those signals affect a mission. And if you can't connect those dots, planes don't fly, friendly force tracker doesn't work. Right. And there are consequences for that. But as we get more technical, sometimes we allow technology to be a crutch for discipline. And we start doing things just for the sake of doing them instead of understanding what the relevance is and why it's important. A buddy of mine, he was a commander in Afghanistan. He was in ground tax, which is sort of the ground radars that support AWACS when they're in the air and just make sure that bad air power isn't going to come and pound ground positions. Mm-hmm. And, he was having the same problems with communications going down, not being able to be restored. So he talked to the young troops that were there. He sent sergeant to sergeant and then, major to major to kind of figure out, and they just didn't get it. They were restoring circuits and trying to get all the communication back, but their priorities were jacked. And, the number one priority was making sure that the morale phone in their commander's tent was up at the expense of being able to talk to planes and let, security forces know bad guys were coming across the perimeter. Right. So he applied a little bit of old-fashioned mentoring, and they were able to work it out. It all comes down to those relationships.
Right. Sometimes you got to lay down the law. Yep. So, speaking of that kind of stuff, then, why'd you write this?
Well, ever since I was little, I always kept journals, and I've always tried to document what was going on in my life because, quite honestly, I didn't understand a lot of it. And it took me a while to put my early years into perspective. It took me a while to kind of see at different points in my life what I had done and if I had grown, if I had learned anything. So that was a component of it. After my military career was done, I had a couple of print paper boxes that were just full of pretty much vignettes and short stories and just the this is what I did here, this is what I did there. But I didn't have anything that kind of unified them and was a common thread that made it a novel. And if it was a collection of humorous stories, you can usually do that and make that work.
Right.
But I struggled with that, and then I started to think I really wanted to write a fantasy book. And then my father passed away, and I grew up in I would like to think it's a non-conventional way, but I think everyone everywhere knows someone or has been through something where your parents just didn't live up to what they were supposed to do. My father had tried, but he grew up in a harsh environment. He grew up in a world that was really poor. He was a Marine. He was a force recon and later a sniper before he left the service. He did several tours in Vietnam, but he's a classic example of PTSD. Before we acknowledge PTSD, was he came home a very different person than when he left.
Like back when you were just some crazy war vet.
Yeah, some crazy war vet. And to be honest, he came back towards the 63, 64. So he had seen the front part of it and some of the preliminaries. But he got to experience it heating up and all of the reaction and revulsion that the servicemen at that point experienced. So that affected him. And he also wound up being, and you work with veterans organizations, so you know this. It's the scars that you can't see.
Yeah,
it's the and at that time, it was suck it up, Buttercup. Be a man up.
Yeah, I thought you were a fucking Marine. You can't deal with.
Yeah, you can't do that.
On your head, like what's wrong with you?
So, but you carry around this stuff, and it just gets worse over time. And some people can do it, some people can't deal with it. My father's way of dealing with that was to have a very, very strict code of ethics and a core that this is the way a man acts. This is the way a Marine acts. This is the way I act. And then he did what a lot of people did, is he got a degree in psychology and nursing. So he could figure out why he was screwed up in the course of trying to help other people that was screwed up.
Yeah.
So he tried to train me to be and operate in a world that he saw that was cruel and gave no quarter and gave no mercy.
Yeah.
So he had good intentions.
Survive.
Yeah, survive, operate, survive.
Yeah.
His philosophy basically came down to, if you're not strong, well, his philosophy came down to don't be a pussy. So, and it took me a while to figure out how not to do that.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where, he had good intentions and he really had an idea of where he wanted all of his children to wind up, but his way of getting there was brutal.
Yeah.
But then again, at the end of my last firefight when I was in Iraq, in my first tour, the lessons that I learned from him, I really believe were the reason why I was able to make it back and egress my team and do the stuff that we had to do. So that threw me into a tailspin. So getting back to what you said is why did I write this? Is I was trying to come to terms with all of the things my father had tried to teach me, and messages that I carried around inside of me that I didn't even know they were there. But when the circumstances were right, it triggered, and I was able to execute some of the things that he had wanted me to do way before I had any context for that. And that left a mark on me. So I tried to go through that bin of stories and vignettes, and I tried to look at it from the perspective of, what does it take to grow up? What does it take to be a man? What does it take to be the kind of man I wanted to be? And that ultimately led to what kind of family I wanted and how I wanted to do that. And with the military, it's a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And, you don't fight for big ideals. You fight for the people that you love and the people to the left and the right of you that you care about, so you can get through whatever shit gets thrown at you.
Right.
And that combination of things resulted in the path I took to write Baghdadi.
Okay. So would you say it was almost like getting all these notes you had to put into a bigger picture so that you can be like, oh, here it is all at once, slated, instead of, jumble of ideas.
Mm-hmm. That's a part of it. And that's probably the first part of it where you go, okay, what's the point?
Right.
So now, and then if you go, well, I want to know, how did I come from a screwed up family to being at Maslow's bottom hierarchy of need and trying to survive, to wanting to get to a place where I could be productive, I could have a life, and I can have the kind of family that I want. And then sorting through all of that debris and detritus for the moments of my life, and saying, which of these kind of fit? And after I'd laid those out, then it started to make a little bit more sense to me, where the dots connected seemed to be a little bit clearer. And 100 rewrites later, there I am.
Yeah, that's another thing nobody ever puts into perspective, is the first time you write it down, no matter what it is, it's a hot pile of fucking steamy garbage.
Mm-hmm.
You have to hammer it down together into something. But I guess the way I look at it is, in order to polish your turd, first you have to take a giant shit.
You need a sort of literary fiber. And,
yeah.
You get enough into you, then you have enough material to work with.
Yeah. No. What was your writing process for that though? Did you pin him to the wall, kind of like a crazy madman, mad scientist, and then whatever, or did you put them into Word documents one at a time and slowly mill them? Or
I think I probably tried everything that was humanly possible to try, and made every false start that could possibly be made. And what I wound up doing in the end was, I had already written out in Word documents eventually. First, it was journals. And then I went through and I wrote out what was in the journal that I thought applied, and put that in the Word document. And what I had was a lot of scenes, some of them really good. Most of them had a seed of something good, but it just wasn't there yet. And I struggled with that. We get to, my undergraduate is in literature. It's in writing and literature. And I was told if I ever did that I would never be able to have a career, and I would never be able to support myself.
And what are those guys doing now?
Yeah, funny thing. People who told me that, I wouldn't make it in the military, and I didn't have a gift for reading or writing. Those are the folks that at the high school reunion, they had desperately wanted what I had eventually acquired. And that was kind of cool, but it was so sad I never went back after that. But to your point, how did I kind of put it all together? For me, I tried outlining, and that didn't work. And we all know that, a story needs a beginning, and a middle, and an end. Okay, so thanks. Yeah, now how do I do that? And then they go, oh, well, you do a act 1. You do act 2, and you split it into 2 parts. You do act 3, and then you do a little falling action after that to show how it was resolved. There you go. Thanks. How do I do that?
Right.
For me, I turned to screenwriting and a couple of different books, but the main one was the Save the Cat kind of format. If you've ever used that, it's
what is that?
Save the Cat is kind of it was a book that was written by a guy who had really kind of looked and studied story, and it was mostly for screenwriting. And I thought screenwriting would be good, because that's the bones and a couple of the muscles of a story, and then the rest, other trades, come in and fill in. And Save the Cat looks at he looked at hundreds of movies, and he said, for the great movies that work and tell a story that kind of help us, they pose a question, and then they help bring the reader through that until they get to an answer that makes sense in a compelling way. What are the steps for that? And he breaks it out into 11 to 17 beats, depending on how you do it, and says, these are the parts where you got to start at. You have to figure out what your character desperately wants and what's stopping them. You have to figure out what is the major event that turns the story from act 1 to act 2. What's the major event that turns it from the last part of act 2 into act 3? And it gives you a couple of almost like GPS guide points.
Yeah.
And it says, great stories, inevitably, you can tell them a bunch of different ways, but this is the commonality that they have. And for me, that was eye-opening. And now there's a book for Save the Cat for novels. And that all the stuff I had to do trial and error for and read 6 books and try to figure out, okay, how do I do this in a book format instead of a screenplay? Because screenplay is going to give you, 100, 120 pages and that's your script. Book, you're going to be looking at about 320 to 360 pages, depending on your genre.
Right.
And it's not one for one, but I was struggling for bones to provide the structure. And for me, that helped me get through it and understand in tangible terms, in practical terms, what the process was. And then I figured out my key scenes, and then I pinned them on the corkboard in kind of the order that was specified. And then when I had all of the major muscle movements done, I said, okay, so now from this scene to this scene, what do I have to do to get there? From this scene to this scene, what do I have to do to get there? And I had the benefit of it being a memoir. So there were real events that I was able to use as scaffolding. But I learned a lot about it for storytelling, and I was able to translate that into a narrative nonfiction that worked for Baghdadi. And now I'm doing that with my new book. Well, I did that with the new book that I just did, which is the first of a series called Asher's Tears. The series is called Cypher. And now I'm trying to refine that and do it for the sequel to that.
And is this one going to be a fantasy novel?
This is going to be a middle grade fantasy novel that looks at balance between science and magic in the world where, a lot of stuff that I did, working in secret organizations where you can't really tell people what you've done, but presumably accomplish something good. And in this world, the government has suppressed magic because all of the relics that are left over from when there was big magic in the world are like landmines. They're devastating. So 2 children, their father dies, and they bury the body. And as soon as they do that and they get home, they discover a message that he sent after he was supposedly dead, that he's still alive, that someone on the inside was responsible, trust no one. So the children and a disgraced temple guardian that was guarding the relic that was stolen, that put all the stuff into motion, have to find their father and maybe save the world.
Okay. All right.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's in line edit right now. And last week I did the first round of negotiations to see if the publisher I have now is going to publish it, or if I'm going to clean it up and I'm going to pitch it somewhere else. But I would like to stay with them because I love working with them.
Yeah.
I just got to see what's in the proposal before I can say either way. But if I go with them, I can. It'll come out in fall of next year.
Nice. The thing with that though, the thing for Saving the Cat, when you're talking about that kind of reminded me of Campbell's The Hero's Journey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the similar themes and structures, and like, although his isn't do this, do that. It's like, no, this is what happens. This is what happens. You kind of have to extrapolate your own navigation after that, but it kind of tells you where the mountains and the rivers are, not necessarily how to sail or climb.
That's true. And it's a classic. It basically takes myth and fable and it breaks it out into archetypes that are kind of cool and I thought were pretty easy. The hero's journey, the virgin's journey.
Yeah.
But for me, those were maybe because I learned them in a way that was more academic. I had a little bit more trouble wrapping my head around how to make that work practically. So Save the Cat actually references a screenwriting technique where if you have a hero that is not likable, but eventually becomes likable, how do you redeem him? And the first tactic is to have a Save the Cat moment where the hero is a difficult, mean-spirited asshole, but as he's finished, downloading on a bunch of people, he leaves the building and he sees a stray cat and he saves it right before it gets run over by a car. And at that moment that even though you don't like him, that maybe there's some redeeming quality, and it builds on a bunch of little nuggets like that to try to help tell your story.
So pretty much anything Clint Eastwood's ever been in.
Make my day. Yeah, exactly. And Clint Eastwood is awesome. So
yeah. Oh no, I love him to death. But like every character or every movie I watch, I'm like, I know I shouldn't like this guy, but goddamn, this is great.
And he's one of the now as a director, he's one of the last that really brings stories that are truly controversial and tells them in the way that makes sense. You know, he still tells the Archie Bunker story or the Wild West story, but in the way that people can still get behind today.
Right. I don't know. Did you see that movie? The Mule came out like last year, the year before.
I did not. I have not seen that one.
No really stories or where he made the movie, but he's also starring in it. But he played some grumpy old dude whose family didn't like him and didn't have any friends or anything, and he ended up inadvertently running drugs for the cartel, and then like Bradley Cooper was trying to like chase him down, and then
I take that back. I did see that.
Yeah,
and I thought that was he plays these kind of anti-hero kind of things, and I thought that was again it was art. It was really well done.
Yeah. Like, all he wanted to do was sell flowers, but the internet ruined it. So. Now he's going to take his truck and he's going to run some cocaine around.
Isn't that the classic dilemma with folks in urban areas that are struggling to try to get out of them? You can work at McDonald's for minimum wage, or you can sell heroin, and if you don't get caught on your own product, you make a lot more money. It's a trap.
Right. But you got to do it for the dollar. So, because at the end of the day, like you can have your morals about this, that, or whatever, but 9 times out of 10, food and a roof are gonna come before any type of moral superiority. As shitty as that is human nature. So,
it's a lot of the people who argue morality over practical matters.
Yeah.
Haven't missed a lot of meals.
Yeah. It's kind of like the people that say, oh, well, I'm not in it for the money. It's like, well, you got a lot of zeros in your bank account, dude. I kind of think you are, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, money can't buy happiness. I really believe that. But, putting the top down on the Ferrari and going for a ride, that cheers me up.
Yeah. Yeah. Money can't buy happiness, but it can buy a fucking Corvette.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you be happy. I'm going to drive. Or what my aunt likes to say is, if I'm going to cry, I'm going to cry in a Mercedes.
Smart woman, voice of experience.
Yeah.
Hey, so you're in school now, right? Are you doing the GI Bill thing? You're in Penn State?
Absolutely am. And right now is a great time to be on the GI Bill because that's guaranteed money that's coming in, and I don't have to get a job right now. So,
how far down the road are you now? How far along are you in your degree program?
So they can, in combination with credits I brought in from the military or the ones they accepted anyway, because I want to say like close to 200 credits from military stuff, but they took like 30 of them because what are you going to do in this major with machine gun repair? Sorry, not taking that one, all that kind of jazz. And then going to school in the summer, I am technically in the first semester of my junior year. However, I think I can graduate. I would be able to graduate this winter. However, the courses required for graduation in the major are like they're in a sequence, to do this one, you have to do this one, do this one, do this one. And they only have one of those and they alternate semesters. So I think I'm going to be going to school for another year or two, but doing that thing where it's like, I'm literally only taking one class right now because they won't let me just take both of them at the same time.
All right.
Yay. But
that's good though. I got to tell you, hats off to you, because a lot of people talk about doing that, and it's really hard to stop your life and what you're doing to go back into school. There's inertia. It's really hard to get the ball rolling on that again. I did the same thing for my first degree. I finished my enlistment. I got out. I had a ton of credits, and there's that weird alchemy that they do that determine what you get to use towards a degree and what doesn't happen. And it's sort of like Vegas. It's like, where did my money go? But it just, the GI Bill was valuable. And I was at the point in my life where I thought, I can either do this now, and if I don't take this opportunity, if I don't do this now, if I don't make a point of doing it, then I'm probably never going to finish this.
Yeah, no, that was my mentality too. Because when I was getting out, I didn't really have a plan for where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. So I sent out, applications to a bunch of different schools, and Penn State got back to me first. And that's literally the only reason I'm here and not in Texas or California. But the other thing is with that, I'd been in the Marine Corps for 12 years, wasn't married, didn't have kids. I figured if I got a job and then a wife and then kids, I wasn't going to go back to school. I was going to, fucking, I'm making enough money to feed the kid. I don't need to add extra shit. So if I was going to do it, now it's time to do it.
Right on. It's a tough thing. And I think you're right with COVID. COVID changed a lot of things. It's this last year I had to cancel some speaking gigs, which bummed me out, because I finally was at the point where I was able to tie with some pretty cool writers, and I had some pretty cool venues, and it did kill me, but it was finally, that was going to be the next big step. And instead I used the time to really work on the fantasy book that I really had wanted to do for a while, but I could just never get any traction because there was always a distraction. So instead of external events, I worked on a lot of the internal stuff, and it was very productive. So, one door closes, another one opens.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I had some big plans for this year too. Cause like I'm sure the way with book sales, it's up, down, up, down, up, down. You can't really rely on Amazon for stuff. So you got to hustle yourself. But I figured out that if I, stuff all 6 of them inside of an ammo can, people give you money for it. Turns out if you take like 5 or 10 of those to like a gun show, they fly off the table. So nice. I had all that lined up for like this summer, and then it's like, we're canceling all these gun shows because COVID. And it's like, but I have a sci-fi book about killing people and having sex with aliens, and it's in an ammo can, and people want this. Nope. No. So maybe next year.
I mean, I think it's inevitable that that's going to come back.
Well, it has to.
Society is going to change a little bit. It'll probably take a solid year to get from the time we have a viable vaccine to the proper distribution, where it trickles down to people who aren't the most needy for it, and it gets into the general population. So there's a good plan to do that. It's just, Corona was novel because no one had ever countered it before that we knew of. So there was no way to really use an old blueprint to make it work, to come up with a solution. So a lot of people have really done they've scienced the hell out of it, and they've come up with a streamlined way, and it's really promising. But the corollary to that is there's a lot of misinformation, and there are a lot of people who are just peddling hysteria to line their pockets, and it's unconscionable.
Well, I mean, the whole thing about hysteria and people's wallets, that's nothing new, but somebody's making bank off this. The other thing, though, if you want to talk about conspiracies about it, is I'm fairly sure that COVID is actually a government psyop to hide ugly people behind masks.
Right on. Yeah, not 100
face on the street, hide that shit. There's a virus.
Not 100% effective though, because there's still parts that stick out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough, and we haven't stepped out smartly in a lot of areas. We have stepped out smartly in others, and we're learning as we go. And people have no patience for that. They have no tolerance for that. So.
Well, the other thing too, though, is it's easy to point at stuff that's not working and be like, oh, see, nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. Why should we trust them on anything? But if you look at how any science works, the way it works is we think this is going to work. We're going to try it. No, that didn't work because we think this. Let's adjust this. Try it again. Let's tweak this. No, that didn't work. And same thing with like, writing a book or, making a movie or building a damn house or anything. Like you fuck up until you get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And no one ever sees this mile of shit they went through to be like, hey, look, here's the final polished product. I just totally just vomited this.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go.
Well, first drafts don't sell. So
yeah.
So no one knows what goes on behind the curtain. Being an artist in particular, and this is one of the things I admire about you, is you have really taken this time to explore a lot of different types of art, visual art, your writing, your music. And I think that's bold. I think that's kind of a classic interpretation to how artists have done things in the past. And I admire that. I wasn't able to do that. I had kids, I had obligations, and I had to wait until I had figured out how I was going to ensure that the mortgage got paid and I wasn't taking food off the table because other people relied on me. So I had to wait until a much later point in my life. And I've always admired people who could who had that clarity and that sense of purpose where they could take that jump. I think there are a lot of paths to get there, but the people who were willing to live like an artist and make that work through trial and error and experience, I've always had a lot of respect for those folks.
Thank you, but I can't really take too much credit for that because I mean, like, got married last year, don't have kids, GI Bill's paying for this stuff, and then like I was medically separated, so if I get a job at Wendy's after I get out of college, I'm still set. So
nice, But you did combat camera, right? You were visual information, so you got to actually go into a lot of hostile areas and be the detached observer.
Right. Well, I wouldn't say detached. There was a lot of kinetic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that. I kind of do wish that I took it a little bit more seriously and dived into the how-tos a lot more because I was very caveman with it. Like camera goes click, rifle goes bang. But I remember it was my first or second firefight, and shit's going off, and I pull my rifle up, and then my corporal's like, "Hey, no, hey, Kodak, I need pictures for MySpace. Put your fucking rifle down." I'm like, "God damn it!" All right.
Yeah, it's I've my experience in direct combat was limited. I had several engagements. I worked with the Army to break down a couple of doors, but
like you were also like rolling around in like softback Humvees too, right?
Yeah, we were. We didn't have armor back then. It was we took the doors off because they were aluminum frames that had canvas stretched over them, and they got in the way of any kind of long gun, being able to get a beat on the target.
And it's not going to stop anything anyway.
It's not going to stop anything. We would go to the junkyards and use welding torches to cut out diamond plate if we could find it, or anything that we could do. We put sandbags in the bottom of the Humvees to help with any kind of IED fragmentation. And it was make do stuff that was effective as we could make it because, we were in a war that we hadn't really planned for. And it took so long for production to get caught up. I mean, we couldn't even get body armor. It was, they wanted us to have it. We were required to have it before we went into theater, but pretty much we shared what we could from every country, and you'd put it together and you'd look like, the colors of Benetton. You'd be a patchwork quilt, but you'd have a degree of protection, and it was all different sizes, but that was the best we could do to protect people that we pushed out past the wire at that point in time. Although later at the end of the tour, there was an Army sergeant, and she was responsible for procurement. And right when I was getting ready to leave my first tour in Iraq, we found a Connex, and we cut the lock on it. We cracked it open because no one could tell us what was in there. And it was about 1,000 sets of body armor that she just didn't want to issue. So we were able to talk to her commander, who reluctantly rescinded her Bronze Star. But she had it. She just didn't feel like doing the job.
Ouch. Yeah, no, and then when they finally did get around to it, they went way overboard with it to a point where it was a hindrance. Because we had, what is it, the MTV flak jacket, where it's like came out almost to here. You couldn't pick
Right.
your arms up further than that. You had this like big neck plate and you couldn't put your head down. And then where they put the molly on it to put your pouches, like there was stuff on the side, but like due to how you would put it on, you couldn't really functionally put anything on the side. So if you got on the ground, you became a teeter-totter, and the thing weighed like 40 fucking pounds. So it was a pain in the ass. Although my second deployment, somebody had the bright idea. My first deployment, not with me, but somebody at the Pentagon was like, "Hey, maybe this shit isn't working. Do something else." So our second pump, we had pretty much just plate carriers where it was cloth over the Kevlar straps. So
sappy plate in the front, sappy plate in the back, kind of.
Yeah, and then like one on each side, but like pretty much just straps holding it on. And it's like, yeah, that's still heavy, but like I can move and I can get on the ground. So improvement as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, I was Air Force, so if we went out and some of the folks that I worked with, we had the old Ranger soft armor that went under clothes.
Yeah,
and it did a decent job, but it was flexible and it was light enough where you could move and you could do what you had to do. But we were Air Force, so no one really understood what we were doing or where we were, and the folks we were supporting were a little non-standard. So we would be walking around outside the uniform time and like a Harley shirt and some cut-off jeans, and sergeant majors, I mean, that would just bring them out of the woodwork to chew your ass. And they'd be like, "I hear what you're saying, Sergeant Major, but I don't work for you." "Well, the Army says to do." "I'm not the Army, Sergeant Major." "Well, but the Army says to," and they'd be foaming at the mouth when they were done, especially when they couldn't do anything to you. Yeah. And unfortunately, a few rotations later, some Air Force generals caved in, and all that went away, and we were standard like everyone else.
Yeah, no, I always loved going to the PX with my Navy buddies, because they would have like long ass, for military long ass hair, and somebody'd come up and start yelling and they'd be like, "Navy regs," and whoever it was just give them a mean look and then fuck off. Like, I'm not even in the Navy, so I kind of adopted that after a while. It's like, I don't know you, you don't know me. This is a big base. Navy regs.
I came back in from. I had come in from the field, and we had a difficult time. Our vehicles were all busted up, and they were shot to hell. We had some minor injuries, some missing teeth, some cuts and bruises, but overall we had done really good. We trashed a bunch of vehicles, and I had taken my guys to Slayer, which was the Air Force base that was just outside of Baghdad International Airport, and I had the convoy parked, and they were going in, and all they wanted was Slurpees. That's all. See, you guys have been through like this massive firefight. All they wanted was these icy drinks, and they were going to bring me back one, and they were going to get some Whoppers or whatever. And half of them couldn't hear, half of them was still not walking right. They were doing that crab walk, and a bunch of first sergeants come up to me, and it was getting close to sundown, and they're like, "Excuse me, sir, where are your reflective belts?" And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Well, Air Force regulations, so and so, and since you're here, you have to have the reflective belt that you." I'm like, "First Sergeant, just loan me some. I'll give you something. I'll make sure that they come back. But we don't have that stuff. You read the room, look at the vehicles. These guys just came through shit, and now you're going to say, well, because you sat your ass inside the wire and you've never gone out, that these guys who are actually doing the job, you're going to give them shit because they don't have reflective belts." Fuck you.
Yeah. Bill is covered in somebody else's fucking blood over here. This guy is missing a finger and walking over to fucking medical.
And he's going to go to medical, and if it doesn't need stitches, they're just going to give him Motrin.
Yeah. Change your socks.
Yeah.
Listen, if you weren't wearing white socks, this would not have happened to you.
Yeah. That's a fact. That's it's in the Frago somewhere.
Yeah.
So
it's in the fucking uniform order, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And so these guys are like, I don't like the way you're talking to me. And I'm like, well, we're not going to do that. I gave you an option. You didn't want it. So no. And this is my commander. And, if your commander has a problem with that, talk. But I was always fortunate that I always had the bigger general.
Yeah.
So.
have your colonel talk to my star,
Yep.
and then get back to me. Although at that point you're an officer, though, right?
I did my first 4 years as enlisted. I left as a buck sergeant when they still had that rank in the Air Force. So E4, that was a sergeant when they wanted you to be a sergeant, but you
Right.
weren't any other time. And then I was out for about 4 years. I worked some different types of security work, some odd jobs. I finished my degree, and then I had the opportunity to come back. So I got promoted to staff sergeant, and then I finished OTS and I got my commission.
Yeah, no, see that's why I couldn't be an officer, because if I was even just a second lieutenant walking around and a sergeant major said something, maybe like, check yourself, fuck off.
Yeah.
But
yes, sergeant major is a special breed. In the Air Force, we have chief master sergeants, which are they want to be sergeant majors, but they're still at this point in time a little bit more dialed back. They think that they're epic heroes, not quite gods.
Yeah.
So, but I've worked with some phenomenal sergeant majors that could just get shit done, and I've worked with some that were legends in their own mind that were just, as soon as they went home, missions improved remarkably.
Yeah, no, like there are a lot of there is diversity there, but I would say for every 19 pieces of shit, you have like one dude there that's like his job is to be there for the Marines. But I knew this dude. He was my first sergeant on my second deployment. His name was De Leon, and he was one of those dudes where his reason for existing was making sure that his Marines were taken care of.
Nice.
But B, he wanted you to know that he was better than you. So like, his first deployment was like invading Iraq, and then he came home, went to the drill field, and then went to go do Marine security guard, and then went to go be a recruiter, and then came back and went to Iraq and all that shit. And he'd been a first sergeant for like, I think 6 years at this point. And we're like, hey, first sergeant, when are you going to get promoted to sergeant major? Like, I'm not going to get promoted to sergeant major. I don't play those fucking games, blah, blah, whatever. He also had the rank tattooed here. And then over here, it said the power of the diamond. And I ran into him like 6 years later. I'm like, hey, is that First Sergeant De Leon? He goes, Sergeant Major De Leon. I'm like, hey, it's me. He's like, oh, hey, how you doing? Oh, and we were catching up. And I was like, hey, so what's going on with that tattoo, Sergeant Major? And he goes, what tattoo you fucking talking about?
Well, it doesn't exist. You don't ask, you don't tell unless it goes past here.
Right.
And then you got to have a conversation.
Yeah. But
a lot of sergeant majors would come in and say, you got to check your captain. And I'd say, well, first of all, okay, why? And then we'd have this conversation, and it would be like an Army captain or a Marine captain. And I'd say, Sergeant Major, you understand that if he's not able to do its job, it's because some NCO didn't do his job and raise him up right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they would just they would get really pissed off and try to find out ways to make your life miserable. But that's a fun game. So we were able to work through that. But overall, I met some great NCOs. I really have. And I've met some great troops that just wanted to try to do the right thing, get in, get out, be alive, still be able to have babies, have all their fingers.
Yeah.
And they did a good job. But in between, there's some scumbags.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of that comes into it where there's a lot of people that are very dissatisfied with how enlistment turned out. And they're like, you know what, fuck this. I'm going to get a real job. I'm going to go make some money on this. And then there's other people that have that exact same mentality and then also realize I can't make it in the real world, but military will take care of me. So all I really have to do is run fast, do pull-ups, and score this on a fucking test, and I'm set. And then, the internal politics fucking plays into it. But if they have to get promoted on the backs of their juniors, so fucking be it. Like, that's their fucking paycheck. Fuck you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were road servicemen in every service in every category. I've had the opportunity to work with conscripts from other countries, and I am so glad that we have a volunteer service, because those guys are just, for lack of a better word, they're slaves until their time is up. And we have people that, for better or for worse, you can say, hey, you volunteered to come here. I don't care if you volunteered because the judge said that if you don't volunteer for that, you're doing a hard time. But and that doesn't happen much anymore. But
Yeah,
uh,
I haven't
the
heard of that in a minute.
yeah, there's the but you came here because you at least at one point wanted to. So you're going to be here for a certain amount of time, or it's going to be hard time. So, um, you know, what can you do? What can we do to find something that's going to make you a good part of the mission?
Yeah,
But everyone gets disgruntled, and to be honest, I mean, when when I was in, when I first came into the Air Force, it was uncommon for anyone in the Air Force to, outside of special operations and a couple of other specialties, to actually go into combat and do that. I mean, the biggest thing for us was in a 20-year career, you're going to go to Korea for 2 years,
yeah,
or do two little remote assignments, and you get your little badge, and everyone will go, oh, you're tough, and you were able to survive without your family. And after 9/11, all of that changed.
yeah.
And
Like, when did you originally join? It was back in the 80s, right?
I came into the service in 1985.
Okay, yeah. So
Strategic Air Command, when that was still around.
yeah, no. My dad was stationed at was it Mountain Home, Idaho?
No, I thought just down the road from us, about an hour away.
Nice. Yeah. One of his chiefs, because I think he joined in like the late 70s, got out the early 80s. But one of the things that he still complains about is right when he got there, they had some type of special pay for being a remote location.
Mm-hmm.
And because, the base was so far away from the nearest town. And then he'd been there for like 3 months, and the Air Force bought a lot of property around it and like just moved the gate further to the town. So technically the base was closer. It's like, all right, so we're going to take that money off your paycheck. Have fun, kid.
Yeah, there's someone's always going to find a way to save a dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get that. I mean, you sign up to a certain set of rules, and then they change them on you. They move the goalposts. So I think it's kind of universal that the service that you start in is not the service that you end in, whether it's your separation or your retirement. It changes around you. So,
yeah, I'd agree with that. Like the Marine Corps I joined was not the fucking Marine Corps I got out of. But
were you in Fallujah when?
No, I joined in 06. The Fallujah was actually the reason that I joined the Marine Corps, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, granted, there was a bunch of other stuff. Like, I was living with my aunt at the time, or I'm sorry, when I was like my last year of high school, and my uncle was in the Navy, and they were going to Osaka, and I didn't really have anywhere to go. Like I could have like moved in with another family member, but then I would have just been like new place, new town, just at high school. We'll see where it is. Right. And I was kind of freaking out about it, and I watched Fallujah on TV, and I was like, I want to go do that. So, except for I got to step up because on top of being able to shoot at people, I also get to steal their souls with the camera.
The struggle is real. I don't like having my picture taken, but after a certain point in time, I kind of actually dig it now. For a long time, I wasn't allowed to have a social media presence. I wasn't allowed to be out there. And after those agreements expired, now it's kind of cool to see how it works. I don't love it, but it's kind of neat to have the option. Yeah. And are you still? I've seen your art. Are you still staying current with photography, or did you kind of have to put that aside after?
That was kind of a voluntary leave it aside. I'm not going to say that like I did it for so long that like I don't want to do it anymore, but my options now are go find big events and like take pictures of people fucking walking around the street or playing some fucking sports game, or go take pictures of fucking buildings and shit, which I do plan to do at some point to get back into it. But like, I mean, like I'm not running around taking pictures of, like what I would think was the cool shit anymore.
Right.
I hate to be that guy, but
yeah, I've seen your videos. I just have one question. I mean, do you work for the alligator, or does the alligator work for you?
That's kind of a complicated relationship. Technically he works for me, but he does this thing with his tongue.
Oh. Talent. Talent is talent. I know a lot of people who have a skill with being able to take pictures, and it's a skill. I do okay, but I don't have that skill. But
Right.
it seems to me that sometimes through a camera lens, you can see something that other people miss by not seeing it through that small focal area. And I think that in the right hands and in the right circumstance, I mean, that's a kind of magic.
Well, I mean, it's not as glamorous as saying, or as say, like, you know, being a sniper, but if a monkey with a camera makes a photographer, then a monkey with a gun makes a rifleman.
Okay. So there's a lot of throwing shit around.
Yeah, no, and what I used to love to do is somebody's like, oh, well, any, you know, idiot with a camera could be a photographer, right? So like, you know, I had a $3,000 camera I was running around with, so, you know, I'd put all the settings back down to like 0 and be like, all right, here you go, take a picture. And, you know, it would be as easy as like, all right, just put it on auto mode and, you know, do that. But, you know, like just say shooting a rifle, give a rifle to somebody, hey, hit that. Never held a rifle before, or like, you know, maybe a pellet gun or something. It's like, all right, yeah, how hard could this be? Where'd it go?
Yeah, it's a skill. So so you're in Pennsylvania now, right?
Yeah. I'm if that's the state, I guess, like if this is like Erie, yeah. I'm sorry, it's backwards. Here-ish. Right.
Yeah, I have to take a selfie so I can figure out where it is.
Yeah.
Is that like Wilkes-Barre or?
Do you know where Altoona is?
I do.
I am about 20 minutes away from Altoona.
Okay, that's a good point of reference. Yeah. Have you know, with all the election stuff and with Pennsylvania being kind of a battleground state, you know, what's your opinion of you know how things have been going for the last week there?
So before we go into this, like, I don't really have a dog in this fight. Like, I'm a libertarian. The person I know that the person that I voted for is not going to win. But I am firmly in fucking Trump country, and I know for a fact that anywhere I can drive to within an hour is also firmly in Trump country. So I can only imagine that a little bit further than that is like, even if the places where I go is where it ends and it weans off after that, most of the state is Trump country. And I'm pretty sure the only reason that Biden got Pennsylvania is because of Philadelphia.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. I think, you know, things are for me. I liked Trump because I grew up with him in New York and he was always in the papers. So, you know, for me, it wasn't a big stretch to say, you know, he's a lot of bluster and a braggart, but he gets some stuff done.
Yeah.
You know, but for me, the big thing with his presidency was the Supreme Court. So pulling that back to more of a center, a little bit more conservative, a little bit more constitutional. Yeah. I think that buys us about another 50 years of civilization.
Yeah. Well, now I don't know. Maybe there's this study that I read up recently, and someone did the math on it. And if a civilization lasts for more than, I think, 325 years, it's an outlier. And we're at about 250 right now, so we're right in the average for where stuff's supposed to start to collapse. So we'll see. And that's another thing is because everybody looks at the past, right? You look at the past, and when you look at the past, you don't look at what was going on. You look at, okay, so everybody was wearing like 3-piece suits when they went to go be a fucking auto mechanic. If cars were around back then, women were wearing corsets. You might die in childbirth. You might not have fun having kids. Like, you better have 6 of them because 3 of them are going to die on the fucking table. Also, cholera is a fucking thing. So like, you have this like completely different mindset of the way shit is. But if you look at, say, the 1700s, the technology that we would almost call barbaric back then, if you showed that to the fucking Romans, they'd be like, dude, holy shit, you have this? Are you gods?
Yeah.
Technology changes and our perception of history changes with it, because obviously if they didn't have the things we have now, they're plebeian barbarians. So their struggles cannot be our struggles. However, the same shit keeps happening over and over again, regardless of the houses we live in, us flying in the air, going to the damn moon. our society at some point is going to collapse.
Right. We're
It might
still
not be
us.
soon. It might not be soon, but it is going to. Like a prime example of that. What was the strongest country in the world in fucking 1989?
1989.
Yeah.
I would say us.
Close second.
Either Russia or China.
Yeah, the Soviet Union's not a country anymore.
1989.
Well, maybe not. 88. 88. Let's go 88 because 89 stuff started going downhill for them. But
okay, because I mean, we had. Okay, I give.
Yeah, no. I mean, like, granted, we were pushing. We were pretty much, winning the Cold War for whatever you say winning was. Because there weren't lines, but we were spending a lot of more money to do a lot more shit, and they were trying to keep up and not being able to do it. But before that, they got to outer space first. They got people in space first. They got jet fighters before they did. They won World War II. We kind of just showed up at the end.
Yeah. Well, they fought all the way through, so you give them props for that.
Yeah. Like, well, they were the guys that took down Berlin.
They were, in fact, when the year after I left the service for the first time, when I got out, when I was in school, the Berlin Wall came down.
Yeah,
and that was a huge thing.
Yeah, but if the country that got to outer space fucking first after beating the Nazis could just fucking collapse into fucking nothing, we can too.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be really fucking careful. And granted, we're only staving off the inevitable, but it's going to happen. Now, it might not be, straight into fucking Mad Max, fucking Beyond Thunderdome shit, but say like Ohio, New York, and Pennsylvania become its own like regional power, and then Florida and Georgia and Alabama get together to be a thing. Like, we're not always going to be this union, and we have to appreciate what we have while we do. But the other thing, going back to politics with it though, is granted, COVID is an outlier, but if we pretend it's January of this year or December of last year, there wasn't a functional difference in 99% of Americans' lives between Trump being the president and Obama being the president. And in that, there also wasn't a functional difference between Obama being the president and Bush being the fucking president. Like, whoever the president is, yeah, we can bitch and complain about it, and we can be mad at people about their political views. However, it actually doesn't really affect most fucking people.
Yeah, it affects people to degrees, but not catastrophically.
Right. It's not like, different warlords are taking over.
Right.
So,
although it looks like we're pretty close to having the Kingdom of Portland.
I thought that collapsed.
Yeah, well, that's true. They did. They had that chop, and that, and then finally, that got cleared out. So, but now it's Portland. Yesterday, Portland was on fire again. So,
like somebody set it on fire, or like natural fires. Because
no, this is downtown. This is in fact, the governor actually mobilized the guard in
good for him
to do it. So, it's. I think you're right in terms of where we are with civilization and the possibility for decline, because I think the lines are starting to be drawn now.
Yeah.
On where things go. I mean, already, like the Atlantic was saying after President-elect Biden was declared that there was just this group of people who were Trump supporters that they just don't get it. They're never going to get it, and they started to go down that road on CNN where one of the announcers said, well, these are people that, just need to be gotten rid of. And they were like, whoa.
Yeah.
But that's the philosophy. There's the philosophy of, we have the picture and we know what we're going to do for you. And the philosophy of, we just want to be left alone to the greatest extent possible to manifest our own destiny.
Yeah.
And those are more and more becoming irreconcilable differences.
Right. The thing that like I always kind of gets me about that, I know this has like been memed to death, but if there were something to like break out where like say the left was like, all right, well, these dumbass racist rednecks, they gotta go. It's like, well, the dumbass racist rednecks all have guns, and you don't. So what exactly is your plan for this?
And plus, in every zombie apocalypse movie, it's the redneck that carries all the weight.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever seen a movie called Dead Snow?
Is that the one with zombie Nazis?
Yeah, where all the teenagers are like, or I'm sorry, they're not teenagers. They're undergrads in like med school or something. They're freaking out, and everybody's getting killed, except for like the one dude that just got out of the army. And he's like, "All right, so what you got to do is you got to cut their guts out and use them as ropes to rappel down the cliffs." To
yeah. I got to confess though, I was pretty drunk, and my son was watching it, so I have gaps.
So there's a second one, right?
All right.
The second one is on par, if not better, because what happens at the end of the first one is the one guy gets away and he's driving away and he cut his arm off because a zombie bit him in the wrist and he didn't want to turn, so he chopped it off. And while he's driving away, there's a zombie in the car and he just like runs into a semi truck. Anyway, what happened between the movies is the paramedics found this guy in a car accident didn't have an arm, and there's an arm here. So we're going to sew the arm back onto his because it's his arm, but he stays human, but he gets all the zombie powers, right? So he can like raise people from the dead. And what he does is the Nazi zombies come back and they're like more organized, and they break into this like World War II museum and they get like panzers and machine guns and shit. So like, and what he does, since they're in Finland or Norway, is he goes to this old Soviet graveyard and raises all the dead Soviet troops from World War II back from the dead. So it's like Nazi zombies versus Soviet zombies fighting each other. And then what he does at the very end of the movie is he goes to the graveyard where his friends are buried, right? He takes his van up there and he raises his like dead girlfriend back from the dead, digs her up, raises her up, and she like gives him like the zombie look, and then he gives her like the don't eat me look. And then it starts playing Total Eclipse of the Heart. And then like the van is like shaking and like all fogged up. They do the hand like great movies. Check them out.
I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna check it out. That I mean, there are some things that can only be done in a B or a C movie.
Oh yeah, like The Evil Dead would not have happened if they tried to make a movie out of it. And they remade it and it was terrible.
Did you see the series? It was.
Oh my god, yes.
It had moments, but it wasn't the same.
And it wasn't the same, but they brought Bruce Campbell back and they just had him play Bruce Campbell, and that did it for me.
Did you ever see Bubba Hotep?
Another
Bruce Campbell movie.
Wait, was that the one where he was in the old folks home and he thought he was Elvis?
Yeah, he swapped with Elvis, and Elvis, he thought he was going to get away from that, and then he wound up getting sick or something like that, and he wound up being in the old folks home, and then some kind of coffin or sarcophagus fell off a bridge, and now all of a sudden it's on.
Yeah, no, that was a great one. What about My Name is Bruce?
Another good one.
That is great. And for people at home who haven't seen My Name is Bruce, Tommy Allen in the comments said everyone liked Bubba Hotep, which is a line from My Name is Bruce, where pretty much what happens is somebody disturbs this graveyard that had a bunch of Chinese immigrants that were working on the railroad, and the god of war and bean curd showed up to kill the town. So they kidnap Bruce Campbell to fight this monster, but they think it's Bruce Campbell from the movies, but it's just actor Bruce Campbell, and he thinks that it's some type of show or play for his birthday. He just makes an ass out of himself.
Anything with Bruce Campbell in it is pretty much awesome.
Oh yeah, Guandi.
Yeah.
Oh, also my buddy Nate in the comments. Have you ever seen a movie called Thanksgiving?
No, that I have not.
Okay, so let me tell you about this movie called Thanksgiving. This isn't a B movie. This is like an F- movie, but 100% worth your fucking time. Like I'm gonna say the budget for this was probably $300. Like not good, but what the basic premise was during the fucking first Thanksgiving, the Pilgrims insulted the chief there, and the chief put a curse on this family that every 500 and X amount of years, whatever it was between the first Thanksgiving and 2008, this turkey would come back and take vengeance. And this turkey was like a vulture hand puppet with like feathers glued to it. And it came back to, kill all these teenagers in Ohio. And the acting was worse than any fucking porno ever. It was just garbage acting. But they set it up in a way to where it's like, this is a train wreck. I love this. Like, there was a part where, this is a little bit dark, but there's a part where this, puppet turkey rapes and kills this chick, but he's like, you just got stuffed. And then just like nothing but Thanksgiving puns the entire time. And then when her friend showed up, it was like, oh my God, no, Suzanne's dead. And what I just did there was better acting than what that line was in that actual movie. It's like, why is there extra small turkey flavored condoms in here?
Okay, I'm gonna look it up.
It used to be on Netflix. I don't know if it is anymore, but
yeah, everything. Netflix used to be the home. It was like the island of broken toys for a while, and now they've kind of found their way. So a lot of the stuff that were classics that are there is no more.
Yeah.
Did you ever see Killer Clowns from Outer Space?
Yeah, I actually watched it a couple months ago. Another terrible fucking movie that's just great.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, no, like the makeup and costumes on it were just awful, but it was like, no, I'm gonna watch this. And then like at the end where like they're in the UFO fighting him, there's like one Jack in the Box thing. Yeah.
That was good. Another benefit for being in America.
Speaking of shit B movies that are fucking good, have you ever seen Navy SEALs?
A long time. I've seen parts of it. I gotta say, sometimes I laughed, other times I changed the channel.
Yeah. It was like they tried to make Top Gun again, but instead of fighter pilots, it was Navy SEALs, and they did not do a good job at the fuck all. No. But it still got Charlie Sheen and Michael Biehn in it, and the Allstate guy. So you're like, all right, I'll deal with it.
Yeah.
My
moments.
Yeah, it did have its moments, like where they're taking back that ship, and one of the terrorist dudes stands up and starts yelling at him, and Charlie Sheen's like, "What did he say?" And then the guy that played Slider in Top Gun was like, "He said something about your mother." It's like, like hip shot.
Yeah, I haven't. Lately, I've been trying to catch up on the old Godzilla movies and all the kaiju movies, and when I was a little boy, my father loved those things, and I could never figure out why. He was like, they're like cartoons for adults, and he would point out that you'd see the tanks coming along, and he'd point out the wires and all of that stuff. Yeah. So I wanted to watch them again as an adult, and some of them are awful, but some of them are pretty cool. They're definitely worth watching again.
Well, I mean, because there's like 50 of them, right?
There are, and I mean it each one has social commentary for whenever they were. The first ones is Godzilla comes because of nuclear waste that's being dropped off the islands of Japan, and he morphs into this monster. But then he winds up being a god, and then then there are the little girls that live in the box that summon Mothra.
Yeah.
So,
do you know how they made the Godzilla's roar sound?
Someone told me once that they took a tiger or a lion and they played it backwards, but I don't know if that's true.
I think they did that for a few of them, but the original one, what they did was they took a wet leather glove and ran it down a cello, and then slowed it down.
That's a cool piece of trivia. You win.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I do know that they did something similar for Jurassic Park with that, but then they also like spliced it in with like a lion or a tiger or something, to, like kind of give it that like that high pitched shriek, but also that gravel like, all at the same time type noise.
I thought the only trivia I know about monsters like that was when the Lord of the Rings movie, when they did the Balrog, they came up with the voice by taking a cinder block and pushing it across a concrete floor, and that's how they got the voice for that thing. I thought that was out of the box. I was like, okay, how? First of all, where do you have to be creatively to go? This mythical creature that's pretty much this demon, it's stone grinding against stone, and that's the direction we're going to go.
All right, so guys, we have an idea for this. What do we need to do? Fuck, I don't know. I'm gonna go kick this thing real quick.
That's most of Sid and Marty Croft's work from when I was growing up. Like, all of the Pete the Magic Dragon and Figment and the Sea Monster.
Yeah. Speaking of Lord of the Rings stuff, though, have you ever looked into Christopher Lee's backstory?
Christopher Lee was he was a UK special operator for a while, and he worked some interesting side projects. But beyond that, I don't know so much about him.
So he was in the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, right?
Ooh.
And we'll get back to that in a minute. But the reason I got down this rabbit hole is I was watching the behind the scenes stuff, and they were trying to make a sound effect for somebody getting stabbed, and they did like a thing, and Christopher Lee just happened to be there. He was like, yeah, that's not what that sounds like. And then everybody's like, what does that sound like, Sir Christopher Lee? And how do you know this? He's like, well, so I was in the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. We did a lot of stuff that I can't talk about because it's still classified. We did destroy a Nazi heavy water facility so they couldn't build nuclear weapons, which that always stopped me. So because I was like, so you were on the team that stopped the Nazis from being able to have nuclear weapons. What the fuck was going on that you can't talk about 50 years later? Like, but after World War II, he left the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare and went to go do, I guess, extracurricular activity in South America by stabbing people to death. He used to wear swastikas. But while he was doing that, his cousin, Ian Fleming, who he talked to, wrote a series of books. You might recognize them as the James Bond novels, and they were not exactly loosely based off of his exploits in World War II immediately afterwards. So that dude in real life is the inspiration for James Bond.
That's a life well lived.
Yeah. And then after all that, he starts making horror movies, and he is arguably the most recognizable Dracula. And then I want to say he was in his 80s, started making heavy metal music.
That I did not know.
No, dude, it's nice because I mean, it's not, like super great or anything, but the fact that it happened. But all he has one heavy metal Christmas album, and the other ones are concept albums about Charlemagne, because he can trace his lineage back to Charlemagne.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's trippy. And he got to be Saruman.
Yeah. One of the things, like I loved Ian McKellen's portrayal of Gandalf. However, they originally approached Sean Connery about it, and part of me kind of wishes it was Sean Connery.
It would have been pretty cool. I don't know. I mean, there were a lot of people that were gunning for that part, and Sean Connery would have been the good one.
And like just for the accent, like, yes, the orcs and the Uruk-hai are coming.
I think there's a good mashup to be had there.
Yeah.
They're remaking The Lord of the Rings, and I thought Peter Jackson did a really good job with his interpretation, even though, a few of the fans got their nose out of the joint because it wasn't so true in every area to the book. But I thought his interpretation was very good. And now one of the streaming services is going to be doing it, but starting a little bit earlier before that story. So I'm kind of keen to see what they do.
Yeah, I think it's Amazon, and they're going to focus on what Aragorn was doing before shit hit the fan. Yeah,
it's somewhere between the Second Age and, before, when Aragorn was in that northern land, and he was a ranger. So
because by the time the Lord of the Rings took place, Aragorn was like 120 years old. Like, he was a man, but he was like a certain breed of man that, like, lived 500 years old or whatever. So one of the other things is what's the guy that played Aragorn? I want to say it's Hugo. It's not Hugo. I forget his name. But there was a scene they were shooting where they thought that Merry and Pippin were killed, and he goes and kicks that helmet, and he like screams. And the reason that went as well as it did was when he kicked that helmet, he actually broke his foot and like fell down in pain, like, fuck, I broke my foot. But instead of saying this, the hobbits are dead. And then apparently, like, he didn't tell anybody about it. So like a day later, like, hey, dude, is your foot all right? He's like, no, I think I broke it kicking that helmet. I didn't want to go to the medical tip, buddy.
Get your Motrin.
Yeah, change your fucking socks, drink some water.
Well, that's like Tom Cruise stuff. I mean, he does a lot of his own stunts, but I mean, in the last movie he did, he broke a leg or a hip or something like that, and he still kept filming. So props.
Good for Viggo Mortensen. Thanks, Tommy.
Yeah.
What movie was that?
That was one of the oh god, not Ghost. With the last one, he
one
had
of the
to do
Impossible movies.
Yeah, exactly. He had to do sort of one of those parkour jumps between buildings, and he hit it, but he hit it. He stopped himself with his leg and went over, and he snapped the bone.
Oh, that sucks.
And he still got up and he finished the scene. So I was like, that's Scientology. That's power.
Dude, fucking Xenu, man, fucking channeling the harness of it. No, like that's one of those. Tom Cruise is like my example for separating the art from the artist, because like if you like listen to any interview with him, like to me at least, dude sounds like he's batshit insane. But if you've got a fucking 6-pack of Coors and Top Gun on, you're fucking goddamn wrong if you think I'm not about to fucking pound all those and be like and cry when fucking Goose dies.
He's a real artist. I agree, and he has been really good at being able to pick opportunities to develop and franchise. So, like I said, regardless of his personal beliefs and what that means or doesn't mean, he's still a powerhouse in Hollywood.
Oh yeah,
he puts out a good product.
Yeah, and he makes great movies. Like I was gonna say recent movies, but not quite so recent. But like what is it? The Day After Tomorrow was amazing. Oblivion, I think, is one of the greatest movies ever fucking made. And he knocked out of the park his roles in both of those.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
So, where are you on your series? Last I saw you were posting that you were working through another one of the books, but it wasn't kind of clear where you were on it yet.
So what I want to do is what I did with 3, 4, and 5. 3, 4, and 5 I wrote all at once over the course of a few months. I also wrote them at work because I was platoon sergeant and the ops chief, but I was at a base unit and didn't really have a whole lot to do. So most of my day was everyone's up for fucking PT. We PT'd. We're here for formation. You guys are doing your job. So I'm going to go answer emails real quick and then whatever. So I would, like at work, the first thing I would do is I'd go through all my fucking emails, fucking make sure all that shit was set up. And then by the time that was done, it was like 8:45, maybe 9 o'clock. And I had nothing to do besides make sure people were working, which effectively could have been play solitaire or get out of my chair once every hour, walk around. So instead of playing solitaire, I wrote, and then once they were done, released them pretty much back to back. So I want to do the same thing with 7, 8, 9. 7 is the writing part's done. I haven't done the art for it or the music for it or anything. 8, I am about this far into it.
Okay, that's a chunk.
Yeah, and then 9. So I'm going to say that I have the rest of 8 and 9 outlined. However, my thing with outlining is I outline what I want to happen. And then this thing happens with the characters because, it's fiction and they have a mind of their own. And like I have a, idea in my head for whatever he's going to do. And it's like, all right, we're getting to this point. But after I wrote that this is going to happen next, but after this happening, they're not going to do this. So I'm just going to kind of see where it goes, see if I can get them to there. They're not going there. Okay, they're doing their own fucking thing. So I have an idea in my head for I know where 8's going to end because I'm close to it. I have an idea for what I want to do for 9, but it might end up going in a completely fucking different direction just because this happened. Are they really going to do this after that? So, but I am trying to shoot right now for hopefully this summer. If things go as planned, like book 7 will be, July, 8 will be August, 9 will be, September, just back to back.
That's a nice way. So what's your Is this going to be an ongoing series, or do you see an end point?
Oh, no. I have it outlined or planned to end at 12. So
Okay.
it'll be almost like 3 different trilogies. Because like the first 3 books were almost same story. The second one, or the second, like 4th, 5th, and 6th, second trilogy of it. So it'd be like trilogy 1, trilogy 2, trilogy 3, trilogy 4, but same characters, loosely the same storyline plot, like kind of follows the family.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's good. I like I got the Gilgamesh references in the first one, and then book 2 and 3 kind of had they kind of mirrored the Iliad and the Odyssey to a degree. Yep. And I really liked in book 3, I liked the coming home to Penelope, and I liked your interpretation on that. So I'm curious to see where it goes. But you'd asked me about my process for that. I'm starting my first series now, and I finished the first book. I'm now starting to sketch out. I'm collecting all my notes from the process up to now to kind of lay them out and then block out what I think the plot's going to look like. But what's your process for this? Because now you've done a series now through at least 3 arcs going into a 4th arc.
Yeah. So there is an underlying thing that is throughout all of it. And for those of you at home who haven't read any of these, spoiler alert, but sorry. Also, if you're here listening to this, I would imagine you've probably heard a little bit, so whatever. But like in the first one, Hank and Doc are immortal, like they become immortal in that. So stuff happens in 4, 5, and 6. It has nothing to do with them. It's all Hank's son that they sent outer space.
Oh, okay.
So like book 4 starts off like 30 years after the end of book 3, and Thatch is on Mars, right? Like okay. There's like World War III still going on, but it's like just a naval war. America and England and Australia, like pretty much Five Eyes, are on Mars. Russia is on Venus, and then everybody else is in like space colonies, except for the Chinese, who are back on Saturn. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that has to do with, or is drawn from my experiences like on ship, because naval war, I know a lot about ship. Like there's a lot of just standing in line waiting to get food and just being bored as fuck, hanging out in the berthing area, and the kind of dumb shit you get into to alleviate boredom.
Right.
So there's that, and then I don't want to spoil too much for you, but eventually it does come back down to what Hank's doing on Earth afterwards. So nice.
I like the art for it. I haven't after I finish figuring out what I'm going to write for this new book, I want to see 4, 5, and 6, because some of the art for it looked a little bit. It was intriguing because it was like Space Battleship Yamato meets Gundam. So yeah, I was trying to see, but with a really interesting kind of Captain America twist. So
wait, hold on. Are you into Gundam?
No, I missed that. My oldest really dug it. So I've watched a few of the shows with Iron Blood Orphans and a couple of other things. But I like the models, but I really where I came into it was before and after the big Gundam movement.
So Gundam's a weird thing because it's kind of like Godzilla in a manner, because like the first series came out in I think 1979, and I think there's 50-ish different series, and a lot of them are in one universe, a lot of them are a different universe, this whole friggin' thing. But the first one was based off of Starship Troopers.
Okay. The book Starship Troopers by Heinlein.
Yeah, the book. Like that's where they got the word, like, because like a Gundam is actually a certain model of these machines called mobile suits, and the way they got mobile suits was they took mobile infantry and power suits, or mobile infantry and power armor, right? Power suits, mobile infantry and power suits. So they just like kind of switched it, and the original Mobile Suit Gundam series is closer to the Starship Troopers book than the 90s movie was, except for instead of bugs, it was people that were living on the other side of the moon. So
yeah, for me, I was more of a Voltron than a Gundam kind of guy. That's where I came into it.
Okay. Yeah, I remember watching that as a kid. That and Robotech. Robotech was fucking awesome for me. That Robotech is actually where I got the idea for the mechs in my second book, the Daedalus that switch from planes to whatever dudes. That and like I love giant robot, I guess anime or movies or whatever. But in the back of my head, I'm always thinking, all right, so there's a giant robot, it's fucking shit up. What would happen if like an A-10 or an F-18 flew by real quick? Because hey, super giant robot. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen this thing called a Gal 8 or a JDAM. That thing's fucking smoke. So with my second book, a lot of the stuff that wasn't Iliad related was like, okay, so if you're an infantry dude on the ground and all you have is like a small or a friggin' javelin, how do you deal with that? So like at the beginning of the third or second book, not the beginning, but like when they were still in Latvia, where they're hiding out in that building, and Macmillan comes back and he's freaking. I was like, dude, I don't know what the fuck's out there. I don't know if it's a Transformer or Gundam or fucking Voltron out there. We're fucked. What do we fucking do?
Yeah.
So,
my new book actually has a giant robot scene.
Yeah.
So I was at the Air Force Institute of Technology, which is kind of like the Air Force's version of MIT. At least that's what they say, but it's politicians are not so impressed. But they do some cool things there. I mean, they've had supersonic bombers that they've done out of there. They've done really cool experiments with nanotechnology and with just cutting edge next generation and the generation past that for kinetic weapons and energy weapons.
Yeah.
And so I got there. I'm going to school, and first of all, they called me up and they said, "Congratulations, you're going to be going to this program at the school." And I said, "Are you sure you've got the right Major Riley?" And they're like, "Oh no, we've got an astronaut this program, and it's going to be really cool." And I said, "Really? I don't think you have the right person." I said my undergraduate was in literature.
Yeah, because like Bill Riley's not exactly an uncommon name.
It's not an uncommon name. It's like John Smith.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, I really think you got the wrong person, because I was scheduled to go to the Marine Corps Command and Staff College. Yeah. And they're like, no, it's going to be you. So I said, look me up. You can look at my transcripts and my records and stuff like that, because, to me, math is like, you draw the summoning circle and then, you summon the equation, and that's how it works. And they laughed and they thought I was making a joke. And then this is what the guy says on the other line that's telling me, congratulations, you're coming to the school, is he's like, oh yeah, you're funny. I'm looking it up now. And then I hear, oh my God, I'll have to get back to you. And he slams the phone down. But they made me go anyway. So I'm going on this tour, and it's Air Force thing. So it's almost like little kids going through a museum holding hands. But it's really cool geek technology and what if stuff from like the 40s all the way up to what's going to happen 100 years from now. And my first question is, okay, so where are the giant robots? And the guy just stops what he's doing. This is like a full bird colonel. And he stops and he looks at me like I'm somewhere between incomprehensible and a moron. I'm just skirting the boundary. And he goes, what did you say? And I said, well, this is the Air Force, right? Where are the giant robots? And he's like, he didn't know what to say. And he just stopped the tour and walked away.
Now, what would you have done if A, he answered that by going, that's a Navy project? And then B, I know you're going with that, but then
well, first, if it was a Navy project, it would have looked a little different. There would be no golf course.
Yeah.
And if for that, if he would have answered it and said something like, come with me now. And, we have all sorts of cool ranges that do all sorts of cool stuff and all over the place. Even if you don't believe the lure about the little green men and stuff like that, there's still some phenomenal technology that goes on there. And if he would have, I would live for the day where he said, okay, you come with me and now you're working here. And if I got to see giant robots and talk to the aliens, I could die a happy man. Unfortunately, I've seen cool stuff, but I've seen nothing to really convince me that actually is there. But I remain skeptically hopeful.
Yeah, no, me too. My biggest thing, I guess, disappointment with having like a TSSCI clearance was that functionally what that means is the higher your clearance is, the more boring shit you're gonna have to fucking sit in. It's like, oh, cool. So everyone that doesn't have a TSI leave. All right, so I have 130 more slides that are just fucking secret. So click. Click.
It's a slow death. I mean, it's slide by slide.
Yeah. No, but B, what would you have done if, you got there and like, you're checking in with your uniform, whatever, and then like weird identical doppelganger shows up just like in an army uniform. You're like, oh, so Bill Riley, you're both okay. So this is a little bit awkward.
I think the first thing I'd say is I'm the real Bill Riley. And, of course, he would say that. So if we didn't have to duel to the death, I think we would have a pretty cool conversation, and it would be better than therapy.
Yeah, no, my buddy Jude had this fucking thought process about this, or I guess thought experiment about it. It's like, all right, so like your clone or identical twin or, you from another universe walks in the door and, shit is the fan. You have to fight him or fuck him. What do you do? And it's like, oh, God, both? I don't fucking know.
Yeah, and I think at that point you open up a bottle of tequila and you let the tequila decide for you. Yeah. I don't know.
I am not going to be held responsible for the decisions that Coors Light is making tonight.
Yeah. Well, first of all, he's going to be a handsome guy with a good profile. So
fair enough.
But your friend either needs to drink more or I guess I would ask who hurt him.
Listen, I love this guy to death. Who hurt him? A lot of people. Could he drink more? We were already at the level when we were in Suriname Palms to where we were drinking past what mortals could do. Mm-hmm. So no, there was this like good, like I want to say like 2 or 3 months where it started off where we decided we wanted to make margaritas, but all we had was tequila, gin, and rum. And we didn't have margarita mixers, so we just like squeezed lime into it and drank it, and it was fucking terrible. But we were the only people standing at the end of the night after that. So,
wow. Well, that's for the two. I mean, you probably created a new substance for the periodic table. There's probably something there that's like MO for Maureen. And
so we're gonna call this Utonium. Well, they already took 135. We're gonna call it Uranium 69.
I would call it Ura.
Yut. Yeah, no, dude, fucking yeah. But on that, we are at about our time limit. I want to thank you very much for being here. We had a good fucking conversation. And if anybody at home would like to check out Bill Riley or his book Baghdadi, which I would highly suggest, you can either, if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, there are links down in the bottom to get to all of his stuff. And after that, though, Bill, tell us where we can find you and tell us your shtick, and then we'll get on other nights.
Anywhere on social media, Bill Riley author, all one word. My website is Bill Riley, RILEY, author.com. And you can find my stuff. You can see the projects that I'm working on. And, drop me a line. I'd love to hear what you think of the stuff I'm writing.
Yeah. All right. Well, Bill, thank you very much for being here. I will catch you at some point on the Instagram, and we are going to have to do this again at some point. When you do get to Cypher's
the new series.
When Cypher does come out, if I don't get you on here before that for whatever reason, hit me up and we'll do some promotional. Hey, go read Cypher. It comes out whatever date in the future here.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Tripp. I got to tell you, I've done a lot of interviews, and never once have I had the opportunity to drink a single malt and have a fun conversation that was surprisingly good. So thank you.
Yes. No, thank you. All right. Well, you have a good night, man.